Welcome back to the Blokes podcast. I'm flying solo today as host. Ryan, God knows what he's doing. He's probably playing golf or something, to be honest. But that's okay. We've got a guest on today, and is a local Peninsula boy turned international man of mystery, I suppose. And it's great to have everyone. Damien Mander from the formerly International Anti-Poaching Federation, now known as Akashinga, the Brave Ones, as I've learnt it's called. Damo, thanks for coming on, mate. It's your hectic travel time. You're going through some medical stuff, trying to get yourself sorted. So thanks for taking the time to jump on and spend some time with us today.
Nick, mate, thank you. I'd much rather be doing this than playing golf. Never will I allow a small round piece of white plastic to ruin an entire day again in my life.
It only ruins the entire day if you allow it to. So it's which Ryan does very often. Unfortunately, we don't have all day. As I said, the time sort of is of the essence for you. So I'm going to jump in with a hard-hitting question first. Did you go to Zimbabwe because you didn't feel Australian, because someone did you dirty and actually lengthened your nickname instead of shortening it, as typically happens? You've gone from Mander to Manders instead of Mando, or...
Well, I have gone from A to Z in regards to countries, from Australia to Zimbabwe. I don't know, mate. It was sort of after the military, just... I suppose for a lot of guys, it's hard to try and fit back into society and coming back here. And I suppose just, it's very hard for us to see the regulatory compression that we have here in Australia. And not that that's a bad thing, but just when you've spent years doing the sort of stuff that we've done and then, traveling through South America, traveling all over the world, and just then trying to fit nice and neatly back into society here. There's like to say, there's not too many jobs for a sniper in the local newspaper when you come back home. And it's not to say that that's everyone's challenge, but it was just, I wanted to do something more and try and find some, the next purpose, because when you leave the military, that's often when the real war starts, when the bullets stop, and trying to reintegrate back into society. And you've lost the brotherhood, you've lost the mission, you've lost the purpose all at once. And I suppose, particularly in the context of Australia over the last recent years, with the Royal Commission into veteran suicide, and that it's a if we're going to send kids across to fight the arguments of old men, we've got to pick the pieces up when they come home. And I think that's one thing that we have failed at, not only as a nation in Australia, but a lot of the coalition forces that we work with.
Yeah, it's there's a long history of Vietnam vets getting spat on when they come home, and that's just the transition back into civilian life is a struggle most people. Yeah, and I think it's institutionalization as well, coming out of prison back into society, or coming out of any place where there's a structured routine and regime and everything, to transition from that into something that's a bit more flexible. You can get a bit lost. So the struggle is real. When I don't know how many of the listeners are familiar with the Australian military sort of structure, but you were Navy doing clearance diving, and then you went to a special operations group as a sniper. So was that where you transitioned from into different roles, and what was that sort of adaptation like for you?
Literally like a fish out of water. I'd gone from, I grew up here on the peninsula. I used to get up, I'd be down, before school every morning, free diving, collecting squid jigs that had been lost overnight, selling them back to the fishermen, using that to, start funding, putting myself through diving courses, buying diving equipment. Then, of course, any kid that has grown up with a love for diving wants to, the best job in the world is to be a Navy diver.
Yeah.
So, throw me in the water, I've got gills. And then I went across onto, I made it through selection to get into Tactical Assault Group East. And I went across to Water Platoon, naturally being a diver. And then I'd been there only for a couple of days and told I was going to do sniper's course. So they took us over to Perth in Western Australia over there. And I remember on the first live fire stalk that they put us on, and we were with a few other Navy boys, and I was sort of like half tied to a tree there, like hanging off the side, and one of the instructors was like, "Dude, what are you fucking doing?" And I said, "You know what? I have no idea what I'm doing." And so they put us through, they walked us through a sniper's course and taught us all this bushcraft stuff, and then we had to go and do it. That was probably the hardest course I've done in the military. Well, not in it. Like, I've done courses where you're getting beasted and yelled at and screamed at, and sniper course is not like that. It's hard in terms of the targets you have to hit, like theoretically.
The technical aspects of it as well and everything.
Yeah. So, and you're very cool, calm, chilled guys. There's no one screaming at you or anything, but it's just, yeah. And
you were telling me the other day that you didn't actually touch a rifle till you were 18 or something.
Wasn't allowed to, mate. Yeah. So, of course, as soon as I turned 18, I'd go out and buy, get a gun license and do all that. And, I reckon now, that despite the job that we do and, running essentially, what could be referred to as a small army with the intention of protecting wildlife and a widely dispersed armed force across multiple countries in Africa, I reckon I've fired probably 10 rounds in the last decade. We have lots of weapons. We use them as a last resort. My weapons of choice these days, mate, is a set of lips, a keyboard, and a steering wheel.
Well, we can direct listeners to a couple of TED Talks, and the first one, we're disappointed again that your clothing sort of choice got more attention than the words that you used there. I mean, those jeans, they had a pretty wide leg on them, and they're running down onto a pretty sharp shoe there.
Oh, mate, the better you are, the less you need. So,
there was some wild hair going on for you back there too.
Oh, mate, it got bigger and better. I had it out here at one stage. Don't know where those kills came from. Might have been a throwback gene there somewhere.
It was a powerful talk, mate, and lots of people. The 450,000 views, I think, on that one. What was that like? The experience of doing a TED Talk and standing up in front, like you could hear, you were stalking the stage. You could feel the energy coming off you,
mate. So I hadn't done any public speaking before I was asked to do that, and so I'm like, shit, this is a big opportunity for us as an organisation. And so what I did is I started going around to schools and saying, can I just talk to the kids about the work that we're doing so I can get practice? Because public speaking, from what I've learned over the years, and, I get to do a lot of it now, it just comes down to three things: knowing your subject intimately, being passionate about what you're talking about, and being comfortable speaking in front of people. And at that time, I wasn't comfortable speaking in front of people. And so I go around and speak to all these schools. They say, yeah, we'll get you in front of an assembly. I said, no, I'd rather go around class by class. So instead of doing one practice talk a day, I'm now doing, 7 or 8. And I did that for about 5 or 6 months leading up to that Sydney Opera House talk. And look, even though it's not one of those TED Talks, it's been seen a billion times, but it's been seen enough times by the right people, and it has been one of the most critical aspects in us growing the organisation and opening doors into not only into funding, but into the minds of people and organisations that have a deep understanding and care for animals, which is essentially what this organisation was founded about, about justice for animals.
When I look at your journey, it brings to mind this philosophy that we have 2 lives, and the second life begins when we realise we only have one. And so you've had this very distinct sort of first chapter, I suppose, military chapter, and then transitioning. Yes, there's similar elements to it, and you say you're still running a small army and everything, but the the drive is it couldn't be further from the first chapter. I mean, coming out of the military, transitioning mentally, physically, getting lost for a while, then finding the purpose. How do you go? How do you go from? I'm the same. I've gone from military to healer, and so I know for myself it was a journey of just letting go and trusting and figuring out and failing and being really confused and lost and just kept turning up, I suppose. Was there a path for you that you sort of just opened up, or did you have to figure it out as you go?
So I don't know, but maybe it's been similar for you. I didn't sit there and write a plan. I just kept fucking up until it eventually came right. And if I'd listened to some of the advice that I got when I did set up the organisation, we would have accelerated so much quicker. But I wouldn't have learnt the lessons along the way. That we're all a product of our past. I will say the transformation, not only in terms of what we do, but to serve my country. I did it for adventure. I didn't go to Iraq to help the situation. I went there to make money, and going into Africa was more looking for a fight than a cause. And it was then seeing what rangers were doing and what they were fighting for. It was seeing the animals that were being killed, and it was a transformation that was happening inside me. And I think if I'd been given the opportunity and the funding to do something like that 10 years earlier, there's no way that I would have gone down that path. I had to go through what I had to go through to, I suppose, allow the shutters to come up so you can see the world through a different lens, and that's what life is. I'd like to say, we're protecting nature, and it's had 5 billion years to evolve. And evolution is the cutting away the parts that don't work, keeping the bits that do, and moving on. And as humans, we don't have 5 billion years in a lifetime. We've got a handful of working decades at most, and that's our one chance on this planet to do as much as we can in the short time we have. And I see people fucking wasting their lives away. And I just for shits and giggles, I googled. I was doing a post, and I wanted to know, what are the chances of you being born you, me being born me, and there's actual scientific formulas, in space, same time in history, sperm meeting an egg, all that sort of stuff, 400 trillion to 1, and people running around buying fucking lottery tickets trying to win the
It puts it into perspective, doesn't it? Like it's what you hear you've been given this gift, what are you going to do with it, sort of thing. And I've learned over the years to not judge people. I'm like, all right, each their own, do your thing, you do you and I'll do me. But it is, I think, important to put it out there and go, but this is what's available, and this is are you leaving? I don't know, it must have been an 80s expression, but I got drilled into me by my grandparents. Leave things the same, or leave things better, if not the same, as you found them. And it goes for a room. Yeah. You walk into the kitchen, you make a meal, tidy up after yourself. Don't leave it for someone else to clean up. And I think I apply that to the environment. I apply that to other people that I come into contact with. Complete strangers. Just don't cause harm. Don't fuck shit up. I had this. I was in Thailand on one of my getting lost and getting found sort of things, and I was walking down this street, and a Westerner in some real interesting get-ups, pretty Eastern clothes, crossed the street and was walking and eyeballing me. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. What's going on here? And he walks up to me and he goes, leave a mark, not a stain, and just kept walking. And I'm like, what? Like, who sends you that? What's that? Where's that come from? Like, how random is that? And it stuck with me. Leave a mark, not a stain.
Sometimes it's just those little taps on the shoulder, mate, that, the truth is accumulative as well. And I think I'm coming to another stage of transformation in my life. It's when, like, I've gone out, I've done X, Y, and Z, and you know, built up this organisation, and but also acknowledged and increasingly realising that there's things that have slipped through the cracks, and that's been balance, and in particular with family. And you know, the career's cost me one marriage. I've got 3 beautiful children. Hopefully a 4th that will be on the way. We're in the R&D phase at the moment. But I heard a quote the other day, and I can't even remember where I heard it, but it just stuck. It said, "Just be a hero in your own home." And you know, if you can do that and build out from there, then, you know, like, I think the world's a much better place. You know, be a hero to your kids. I think in the end, it's going to be our kids that judge us the hardest, and that's something that really sort of, you know, that's my sort of next challenge in terms of personal growth.
I heard something similar. It was, be the person your dog thinks you are.
Yeah, there you go. Well, dogs at home, so yeah, be a hero in home. Yeah.
And that was something I touched on with you. It was a lot of people talk about, you know, they use the phrase work-life balance, but that suggests that work and life are independent of one another when they're not. You know, they're interdependent. So I suggest to clients to sort of lose that from their vocabulary and just talk about life balance. And part of life is work and family and friends and hobbies and that sort of stuff. And it's hard to achieve something you've achieved, or to build something that you've built, or something similar to that. There's going to be sacrifice. It's going to come at a cost. You got to be out of balance to get something that big off the ground. But the pendulum's always swing, so you've always got to come back in some way. So that sounds like you're at that stage now.
You know, we become masters of creating these perfect little excuses that suit our own conveniences as well, just to either get you through the day or convince someone else that what you're doing is justifiable. You know, but I mean, for me, like, I don't feel as though I've worked a day in 25 years. It's all been, whether it's been the military and, you know, jumping out of choppers and, you know, doing this or blowing that up or going here. It's all been fun or adventurous, and now more so, much more so than anything, it's been purpose driven, since starting Akashinga. And, you know, I think purpose can often be, for many people, one of the most elusive things a lot in life. You know, spend our whole life looking for it, and when you find it, it can become all-consuming, you know, almost obsessive. And you know, especially when you get in your mind that you're doing something that is really needed, and it's easy to start making sacrifices in other parts of your life that maybe deserve a whole lot more attention. So that's some of the sort of hard truths that I've been self-interrogating over. As you know, that self-reflection it's tough, mate. You know, it's tough, but it's also I think that's where the best parts of that evolution I spoke about come from.
It's hard to stand in front of the mirror and be really honest with yourself, and often you can't see the forest for the trees. So that's why, you know, clients come in here. I had someone come in the other day for a discovery session, and my job really is just to hold up a mirror and reflect things without judgment, so they can see the reality of what's actually occurring. And it was really confronting. She goes, "This was so much harder than I thought it was going to be." I'm like, well, you're so brave for doing it. You know, it takes so much courage to do that.
You know, the funny thing is, I think most of us know the answers to our questions and our problems, and we're willing to give that advice to other people, but often not listen to our own advice ourselves. It's you know, and that's all you need sometimes, is just a mirror and the courage that ask the questions and then give yourself the answers that are already sitting there.
Yeah, and I think it's a maturity as well. It's you know, as that emotional intelligence starts to develop, which is fundamentally what we're helping people to do. You see people mature and things. You know, the priority list starts to change, and family sort of tends to move up the priority list, and money and stuff and things tend to drop down the priority list. It's pretty standard, I think.
yeah, I know we were saying it before, but like more and more, in my mind, less is more. You know, whether it's eating less, whether it's whether it's going out less, whether it's having less shit and clutter in your house, whether it's talking less, listening more. It's we can achieve so much just by reducing things down, and it's I don't know, for me, having come from having property portfolios and all that sort of stuff, to just having my position in the organisation, and a simple house, a beautiful wife, lovely kids, a wallet, a passport, and a phone, and that's pretty much that's good with me, mate. I say to the kids, the best classroom you'll ever get in the world is travelling. And I try and get them to travel and experience different cultures and countries and peoples and smells and sounds and foods and all of that. And you're just taking home memories, photographs and lessons. And I think I can't remember who made the quote, "Travel is lethal to prejudice." And me getting outside in the morning to Peninsula, young, tough alpha dude, and then you start becoming very, I'd like to think a lot more humble as you start to see some of the things that are happening around the world, and the way that other people have to live and what they have to live with.
Well, part of that maturing is really reducing the ego, and the ego goes looking for itself in everyone else that it comes into contact with, and that's where division and segregation and separation and all of these things, sexism, racism, homophobia, all of that is because the ego isn't willing to accept the differences in the world. And I think travel is such a beautiful passage to achieving it, and it's really personal development. You've got to embrace what's in front of you.
It's the differences that make us. It's beautiful. It's mixing all that stuff together. It's imagine if we're all the same. That's the beautiful thing about humans. We're all different. So and obviously myself being grateful and fortunate enough to have the travel that I've had and the friendships that I've made, and good friendships is it's not having to text someone every day, or it's whether it's a day or a decade, being able to pick up the phone and say I'm in town and let's catch up, and how's life? Not like being called out because you haven't been in contact for 6 months or something.
Well, part of that less is more. I think quality versus quantity. And that's where I'm sort of focused. I heard another quote one day. I don't know how accurate it is or it's just made up, but the essence of it is good. It was someone asked an Indian chief, "What is poison?" And he said, "Poison is anything that's excess." So it's funny. Water is so important, but if we have too much water, we can die. So balance. It's all about balance. It's all
the eternal quest for balance, mate. That's what I've been looking for. So if you got any tips, I'm open.
That's what we specialize in. So Einstein said balance is like riding a bike. It's not being perfectly still. So it's ebbing and flowing. Like you imagine the seesaw and the center point of the seesaw. It's not just being perfectly still. It's ebbing and flowing. Optimal mental health is about adapting to the situations. A healthy, regulated nervous system is about expanding and contracting in accordance with whatever it is that we're facing and coming back into that balance point. So that's this ebb and flow, but around this central point.
That's a really good way of looking at it. Yeah.
So we're allowed to expand. If suspension on a car, most people will go, I'm scared that there might be a pothole, so they go into contraction. That nervous system will go into fight, flight, or whatever, and their minds will become very distorted and won't actually be in the present moment, looking at reality as it is. So they're in this hyper sort of state. But if you trust and just soften and allow, then when there's a pothole, you'll expand, and when there's a speed bump, you'll contract, and you just that's all I do now is sit here now and just meet things as they arrive, watch it all unfold, and do what's required in the moment. And it's infinitely easier than how I used to operate.
Mate, I feel like I'm getting good advice. You might have to invoice me after this podcast. Thank you. It's good to hear. It's good to hear some of the ways that you position things, because they help.
Okay, and being a lived experience practitioner, so I was in reconnaissance, so we worked with a lot of the special operators and did a lot of that work, and I blew my knee 2 days before going to East Timor, so my whole squadron rolled out and I got left behind, and there was bastardization and bullying and all that comes with the sort of toxic masculinity stuff. So I got med-discharged with physical and mental health issues, but that as I said, optimal mental health is being able to adapt. I used to run, I represented the Army in the Defence Force Games, and I held on to this desire to be able to run, and blowing your knee out and having it the way it is. The math didn't add up. So for 8 years, I held on to this desire, and my mental health declined, deteriorated into the point where it went into mental illness. And I as Melissa said, I couldn't leave the house. A fully grown man couldn't open his door to go and check the mailbox because my mind disabled my body to protect me from all the big bad horrors that it was perceiving that were out there. So it's first-hand sort of experience of what the mind is capable of and how powerful it is. And it was powerful in that way, but once I got involved with it and started training it and started, it's like a puppet dog. Once I taught it to sit and did some obedience work with it, it stopped shitting and pissing and pooing everywhere and making mess of things. So it's fascinating how many people are walking around wishing, wanting, hoping to feel good and to have, healthy relationships and feel good within themselves, but they're not attending to probably the most powerful thing we're in possession of. You got to do the work. I work with a guy in Zimbabwe who do I don't know if you heard of Iboga or Ibogaine. So there's actually, Texas has just been the first state in the US to declassify it as a class 1 so they can start doing trials with it. So Ibogaine is the pharmaceutical compound that's derived from the plant Iboga. It comes from Gabon in West Africa. And, I think it's the most powerful thing on the planet. It's the only thing that can deal with trauma and addiction at the same time in terms of a psychedelic, and considered the Mount Everest of psychedelics. But a lot of US veterans have having to be going to Mexico to clinics to do this in a clinical setting. Very interesting study that came out from Stanford University on Iboga. There's some articles in Rolling Stone. Joe Rogan's done podcasts on it, but definitely worth having a look at it. But anyway, to cut to the chase, so Lewis, he said the heart is the general and the mind is the soldier. So you leading with the heart, and not letting your mind get too far away from you. The mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. That's our whole thing. People are so in their intellectual minds analysing and and we talk to clients about getting out of your head and into your heart. Falling out of your head and your heart knows what to do. Your heart doesn't have to be worried or concerned about things. When you're in that state of love and connected on that level, it's all good. But we go through experiences, and one of the biggest struggles for me, I overcame sort of the bastardization, the bullying, the sexualized violence, and all that. That was sort of eventually that became the easy thing to move past. The hardest thing was that surrendering to the fact that the external world had altered me in a way that I didn't want to be altered, and learning to embrace this new version of me that was different to what I thought I should be, or what I expected or wanted or desired to be.
Yeah.
So again, it was just about learning to go with instead of against, and we're going to carry scars. We're going to have things, and I don't know if it's really possible to fully heal and recover. We can heal a broken leg, we can heal a broken heart, but there's going to be residual things that come with that, and that we're going to have to carry.
Yeah, but I think I don't have regrets. I have lessons.
That's was one of the mindset.
It was one of the things that came out of Iboga and doing that, and it is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, about 100 times over. But you deal with every experience at once, and one of the things that came out of that was just the ability to give yourself grace, and not hold on to all these things and just say, yeah, you know what, you fucked up, but like any fuck up, it's about not repeating it over and over again. It's about learning from it. Yeah, look, we're humans. We slip up, but the ability to take those lessons and use those as personal evolution tools that have huge effects on the people around us, whether it be our partners or our children or our families. And coming home here, you're seeing so many people, this person's not talking to that person, and he doesn't speak to his dad anymore, or his mum, or whatever. And it's like, it does make me sad, like in some respects, when you hear that and some of the reasons behind it. And I was fortunate enough to grow up in a great home with great parents and still have a great relationship. So I understand that's not possible for everyone, but also sometimes think it's being the person that extends the olive branch and breaks down those barriers. I can just go such a long way to healing what is. So much. There's already enough tension in this world at the moment.
And the compassion towards the former versions of yourself. The old expression, charity starts at home. It's like everything starts at home. You can't be really compassionate towards others until you can be compassionate towards yourself. And there's no point carrying these grudges and holding past versions of you with resentment. Like that's not going to bode well.
Yeah. And also too, seeing there's obviously a lot of mental health issues here in Australia. What at least that I'm familiar with. I probably see it more here in Australia than I do in Zimbabwe, where I live. And in particular, also with the veteran community, but also with with building friends and family, and it's a hard one to try and figure out what the solutions are. I don't know what the solutions are. Obviously, to me that have committed suicide, or and then watching the mental health decline of the people that were close to them, as they become the next victims. It is a challenging part. And I do come back here to Australia, sort of, do spend time with friends and friends that need help, but also friends that we're trying to co-conspire on how we're going to help this certain friend that is not willing to put the hand up and say, I need help. And the last thing you want to do is get a phone call and say, your mate's not here anymore. He's gone. And it's happened too many times. So he'll deal with this a lot more than me. I sort of get it in snippets here and there, and get bogged down in life, in living on the other side of the world, and what we do, and trying to be a hero in your own home. And you, I suppose, deal with this on a daily basis.
Part of my rock bottom was definitely having suicidal thoughts and looking for a way to end it, and in that I realised I didn't actually want to end my life. And people who commit suicide don't want to end their life. They don't want to extinguish their life force. They want to end the suffering that they're in, but they can't find a way out of that suffering. So that's what we're providing, is that pathway. out of suffering, or learning to suffer with grace. You know, life
Yeah.
and the noble truths in Buddhism. The first one is to live is to suffer, and so many people have an aversion to suffering and don't want to suffer, so then they compound it by creating more
Yeah.
unnecessary suffering on top
Yeah.
of it. So we're fundamentally teaching people to suffer with grace and then stop creating unnecessary suffering.
Yeah. That's a really good way of looking at it. Pain is the purifier, as we used to be
Mm,
told during training. But I remember, like, from the suicide aspect, and you know, when I was online there with what was the Second Commando Regiment, and another one of the guys had killed themselves, and you sort of, you get that sort of macho mindset of, oh, that's weak, and why would they do that, and you got to just soldier on, and then the commanding officer got up and he explained it to all of us as a group, and he said, listen, you got to understand, in the mind of that person, they're doing what they think is best for everyone else around them. It's actually a very selfless act that they're doing, and they just don't have the ability to be able to see beyond the situation that they're in. When all of a sudden, a lot of the time, I think you just need a little bit of time and support just to be able to get through that, that bit of suffering in your life. And it's definitely something that it's been very close to home for me with some of my mates and former squad and platoon members.
That's a good point you raise, that the people affected by someone who does take their own life, it is such a confusing thing, and they can't grasp, they can't understand, so they inevitably fall into that judgment of that person.
Yeah.
How could they do this? And there's this really dark sort of vitriol that comes with it a lot of the time,
Yeah.
and that's just due to a lack of understanding and
Yeah.
unable to feel that empathy and compassion for that person because they don't take the time to learn about it. So for us, the definition of health is a state of complete mental, physical, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So when you talk about Zimbabwe and you don't see as many mental health issues over there, my understanding is that community is a lot stronger over there. And the social health is so much stronger over there.
It really is, and you see, more than half the nation lives on less than $2 a day, US dollars a day. And but I work a lot in the rural areas, and it takes a village to raise a child. And I've travelled extensively, but going to Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe is described as the heartbeat of Africa. It's they are the most amazing people that I've had the privilege to spend time with. But I can't think of a place where I've seen the smiles bigger on the children in the villages, and kids that have got nothing. They're kicking around, literally a soccer ball made up of rolled up garbage bags, and they're just
I'm so grateful for having that.
In the dirt and the dust, and they're just just running around giggling and squealing, and not complaining that the Wi-Fi is not fast enough, or haven't got the latest bloody 4,000 piece Lego bloody collection or whatever. But that's whenever my son needs a reality check, we get in the car, we go up the bush, and just spend a day and or a week, and just have a look at how not only that, but being amongst nature, which is I think we get stuck in these suburban sort of jungles, just getting out, getting amongst nature, and it's such a healing aspect, and it's where we come from. We are not apart from nature; we're a part of nature, and just finding time to include that in our lives, and particularly with our kids, if those that have kids or family, it's a really powerful thing. It has been a powerful thing for me. It's changed my life.
Well, again, we talk to clients about that all the time, and look to nature for guidance. If you're feeling lost or confused or don't know how to do things, just go and sit in nature for a while. Einstein, again, used to do it when he was trying to solve an equation on the whiteboard, his brain would start to hurt, and he'd just go. They built him a small garden, and he'd go and sit in the garden, and his mind would blow just watching a butterfly, move around. And once his mind was blown, it was clear. He'd walk back in, and he'd see the solution to this problem. And often I'm like, I desire this or whatever. I'm not willing to let it go. And you see a flower and it's blossoming, and then it turns brown and it dies. And you're like, oh, that's right. The law of nature is everything's impermanent. Everything's changing. So everything's okay. And you're talking about the what was the hallucinogenic thing?
Iboga,
Iboga,
pharmaceutical version, which is ibogaine.
Yeah. So Iboga. So that was the hardest thing for you. The hardest thing I've ever done was a 10-day Vipassana meditation. I was sitting in silence meditation for 10 days, and they call that surgery on the brain.
Yeah.
In your breaks you get to sit, and it's they reduce stimulus, so you can't talk, you can't read, write, watch TV, listen to music or anything like that. And so you're sitting next to this pond, and you just watch this insect land on it and then dance around and then run off, or you see a fish. Your mind's blowing the whole time. And then at the end, like close to the end of it, it all clicks, and you're like, oh, that's right. It's not about me. It's less me, less my, less I. It's not about me. And once you feel that level of freedom, it's hard to go back to this me, my possession sort of thing. It's a game changer.
Where did you do that?
I did it in Woorayalik, just a couple of hours down the road. I also did some. It sort of started in Burma and around there. So there's schools all around the world to do it.
Yeah.
So it's fucking tough, I tell you.
Yeah.
Because the first 3 days you're allowed to sort of move around, but then for the last 7 days in the meditation, you're not allowed to move a muscle, and pretty soon all your old injuries start surfacing, and I went up to you're not allowed to talk, but in one of the meditations they check in just to make sure you're on track, and she's like, oh, you listen. And I said, yeah, but I might need a bit more cushions or a chair or something, because I've got this knee condition from the army, and it's my back and everything. And she looks at me dead in the eye and she goes, Nick, it's all in your mind. And in my head, I'm like, fuck you, lady. I know exactly where it is. It's in my knee, it's in my back, it's in my shoulders. And it was interesting. The very next meditation, I sat down, and when all those sensations arose, I met them and allow them to exist, and then all of a sudden, there was this mental barrier that just disappeared, and that level of freedom was, again, just the truth is experiential. It's you can sit there and hypothesize and intellectualize all you like, but to actually go through something like that was transformative.
Honestly, I'm looking more and more at alternative ways of approaching things. I spent time in Vietnam looking at traditional Vietnamese medicine. Spent time with a gentleman, Young Van B, who was trained as much. He was a surgeon for 30 years in Western medicine before he switched over to Eastern medicine, and just seeing the different approach of treating the cause rather than the symptom. And it's also alongside with the self mastery, it's a quest that we're all on. Fortunately my wife is she's very much into this, and been doing a lot of retreats over the years, running retreats, doing breath work, right into the yoga side of things, which I know, like, if I stopped being so lazy with some of that stuff, I would heal a lot, maybe not heal, but help with a lot of things, not only in the mind, but with the body. So, and again, these are things that are on the list. We've just got to, stop saying that something else is more important, because it might be easier.
Those priorities again.
Yeah.
It's there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's interesting. And I've spoken about it with Ryan on the podcast before about when I started to attend to my physical health. I spent I hit rock bottom probably 2005, I reckon. So I spent a good 5 years after that, putting myself back together and then studying and everything. And I opened this in 2009. And so I worked on my mental health firstly, and then, all right, now it's time to address the physical sort of side of things. And I went and started Pilates, and she gave me a pink 2 kilogram dumbbell. And I did a shoulder raise with it and started bawling my eyes out.
Oh, wow.
She's like, I'm like, what's happening? And, the ego can't stand a chance there when you're in front of the little old ladies and crying, holding a pink 2 kilo dumbbell. You got to surrender to what's going on. And it was all about just a big release. Just my body was finally getting attended to. So we can't help others unless we're okay.
First relationship's got to be with yourself.
Primary and most important relationship. So it's interesting when you're talking about Zimbabwe and how little they have, but how happy they are. It's again more evidence of all the research that's been done into happiness, and it's those that have the least are generally the happiest, because they're not in this sense of deficiency. I don't have enough, I need more, and then they attain more, and then they've got to maintain all that sort of stuff and everything. So the connect, the social and family connections, and the amount of gratitude for, I have a red bucket. Oh, how awesome! And then the bucket breaks. Oh, how awesome! On to the next thing. It's just, they're so in the moments with everything.
I didn't know there was. I mean, I don't doubt it. I didn't know there was research around that with regards to more versus less, and scales of happiness. But I absolutely believe it.
I when I was working in Thailand at a luxury health resort, the rich and famous had come in, and Russian billionaires and sports stars and everything. And I don't like to generalize, but they were mostly the unhappiest people I'd ever met. And they'd pull up in their super yachts and everything in the Bay of Thailand, and chopper in and everything, and it was $25,000 for the week, but they had so much money. I love the expression, some people are so poor all they have is money.
I love it. True, mate. No, I think I finished off 60 Minutes when they did their first story on us back in 2010. And my last comment in the interview was, I've never had much. I don't have much in the bank, but I've never felt richer. It's true, mate. It's true.
I want to touch on the work that you are doing, because the North Pole creates a South Pole and vice versa. I was talking to a client yesterday about how we can't have cops without robbers. You can't have speed cameras without people speeding. So one thing sort of tends to create the other, and so they're therefore they're in a symbiotic relationship of sorts. You can't have one without the other. Poaching and anti-poaching, hunter and hunting. Hunting is a big thing. People are hunting for food. So there's a difference between trophy hunting and food hunting and everything. And you hear the narratives from people, and I don't know. For some people, it may be a defence. For some people, it's genuine. But can hunting wildlife help wildlife?
Look, mate, the thing I suppose, I don't want to kill something that doesn't deserve to be killed, and I don't want to pay someone else to do it, especially if that thing can't protect itself. So I have an ethical barrier with hunting. The only thing I whether it's hunting or poaching, I understand people poaching probably a lot more than I understand people hunting. People poaching are generally trying to survive, and it's a large part of what we're doing with the social impact work. in the areas alongside the wilderness we're trying to protect, is to create alternative livelihoods so they don't have to poach. I think what I suppose is more dislikable than hunting, and not just for me, but like if you think of it from a logical standpoint, is the fact that as a global community, we've relied on hunting as the economic income stream for so many areas. And if people hate hunting so much around the world, then come up with a different financial solution for these communities to generate an income from those areas to motivate hunting, to motivate conservation. Hunting, we're actually at the point where the argument doesn't matter. Hunting is in a natural decline across much of Africa. There's less animals to shoot. There's less people that want to fly across the world to shoot them, and there's tougher policies and regulations separating the product from the customer. So whether we like it or not, we don't need arguments, and we don't look at hunting as an argument to be had. It's an equation to be solved. What we need is alternatives, and that's what we're focusing on. All the areas. So we protect just over 5 million hectares now. And it's an area about 3/4 the size of Tasmania, and all of those areas are former trophy hunting areas. And so what we do is we look at a trophy hunting area that has almost zero commercial potential, but sits within a key landscape within whichever country we're operating. And we go into a long-term partnership with the local communities, basically taking over the hunting company, buying it out or buying out the lease, not hunting, and creating a long-term rehabilitation plan for those areas that brings wildlife back in and stops communities from wanting to go in and cut down the trees and kill the animals and create fragments across landscapes and then create isolated pockets of wildlife because those wilderness areas have been lost. So that's what we do. What we have created with Akashinga is a viable economic alternative to trophy hunting. We've now got around 900 staff and contractors that are working on that. It's a mixture of scientists, rangers, data analysts, medics, cooks, keepers, designers, and everyone's job is as important as the other. It's part of a machine out there doing their job on the front lines, and that's my purpose in life. I want to be able to sit back and say I helped protect as much of the natural world as possible. My mantra in life is have a good time and don't be an asshole. It doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you've been a dad or a CEO, the prime minister of a country. If you're doing it well, you're having a good time, and if you're not being an asshole in the process, then that's the way to do it.
Listening to your TED talk again, I've watched it years ago and sporadically and shared it with people, but listening to it again today, it really hit home that you and I have the same purpose in life, which is to become redundant, which is to not have a job. That's the goal. That's the goal. I can't see it being achieved in this lifetime, but it's still worth working towards. So the natural world is really lucky to have you, and it's such a shame. It's such a shame that the natural world needs protecting from another part of the natural world. But it's the way of things. So you've got to base yourself in the reality of what is happening and work from within that. So, but I'd love to pop over there one day. Hey?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, no, I was going to say thanks very much, mate. I appreciate that. I think our future as a species, as a civilization, is going to be directly tied to how willing we are to protect biodiversity. So, as a father of three, that's my role.
Well, we're deeply irrational creatures, the human species. So, a lot of what we do doesn't make sense. It's not very logical or rational. So, we've got that to consider and try and change as well. So I'll do my part on that end and try and help people become more rational, logical, and you do your part over there, and maybe we'll on our final sunset, we'll sit and have a beer and just appreciate what we've done.
Mate, yeah, give us a yell. Let's talk offline and see if we can get you over to Africa at some point, mate.
Would be the best. My dad, before he died, that was the one place he wanted to be. So I'd love to come over with his ashes and spread them somewhere. And it'd be an honour to come over.
Awesome, mate.
All right. Well, thanks very much for your time, mate. I could sit here and talk till the cows come home or till the rhinos come home. There's so much that I'd love to, hear you talk about, and not only for me personally, but for the listeners as well, because what you're doing is really important. So congratulations on overcoming the adversities that you've experienced personally. And I know that there's always going to be things there, both from past and present and future, but I can't think of someone that's better equipped to deal with it, mate. And if there's anything I can do to help out, just let us know as well.
Thank you, sir. Thanks very much.
All right. Well, let you go on with your day, and we'll touch base later.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick.
All right. Thanks, buddy. See ya.